close your eyes for a moment and imagine you're standing on the arena floor of the Colosseum. The massive stone walls rise around you like a canyon carved from time itself. 80 arches stretch in perfect symmetry, each one a doorway that once welcomed 50,000 roaring Romans. But now, there's only silence. Only the whisper of wind through ancient corridors, where gladiators once prepared for their final moments. Only the echo of your footsteps on sand that absorbed the blood of emperor's entertainment for nearly 4 centuries. You're standing in the heart of Rome's greatest achievement, and its most haunting monument, a place where architectural genius met human spectacle, where engineering mastery served political power, where the roar of the crowd could shake the very foundations of the empire. Tonight, this arena of echoes will tell you its story, and as it does, you'll find yourself drifting, deeper into the past, deeper into the stone, deeper into sleep. Welcome back to the sleepy structures, where the world's greatest buildings share their stories in the quiet hours of the night. I'm your guide through history's most remarkable architectural achievements, and tonight, we're exploring perhaps the most iconic structure ever built, the Colosseum of Rome. This isn't just the story of stones and mortar, it's the tale of human ambition spanning 2,000 years. From Emperor Vespasian's political masterstroke in 72 AD to the underground engineering marvels that still baffle architects today. From the golden age of gladiatorial spectacles to the quiet medieval families who made their homes in chambers where lions once prowled. So settle into your bedding, let your breathing slow, and prepare for a journey through time itself. Because the Colosseum has been waiting nearly 2 millennia to whisper its secrets to you. And whisper it will, in the gentle rhythm of ancient construction, in the echo of forgotten voices, in the peaceful silence that now fills what was once the loudest place on earth. Before we begin, I want you to feel the weight of this story. Imagine, if you can, that every stone in the Colosseum could speak. Every block of travertine limestone, every brick, every piece of volcanic tuff that forms these walls. They've witnessed the rise and fall of an empire. They've felt the trembling of earthquakes, the tears of medieval children playing in imperial ruins, the careful hands of modern archaeologists uncovering buried secrets. These stones have stood for 2,000 years. They've seen emperors and slaves, gladiators and saints, scholars and tourists. They've watched Rome transform from the centre of the world's greatest empire to a medieval village to the eternal city of today. And now, in the quiet darkness of your room, these stones are ready to share their memories, not with the thunder of 50,000 spectators, but with the gentle voice of history itself. So close your eyes, let your muscles relax, and listen. As we travel back to the year 72 AD, when an ambitious emperor looked at a hated lake and dreamed of the greatest amphitheater the world had ever seen. Our story begins not with construction, but with vision. Not with stones, but with the political genius of a man who understood that sometimes the greatest gift you can give your people is taking back what was stolen from them. Let's go back to Rome in the year 72 AD, when Emperor Vespasian stood on the shores of an artificial lake and planned the most audacious architectural project in human history. The year is 72 AD, and Rome is a city in desperate need of healing. A brutal civil war has torn the empire apart. 4 emperors have died in a single year, their blood spilling across marble floors where once there was stability. The new ruler, Titus Flavius Vespasianus, better known as Emperor Vespasian, faces a challenge that has broken stronger men. How do you win the love of a people who have lost faith in their leaders? His answer lies in the most hated place in Rome. In the heart of the city sprawls Nero's golden house, the Domus Aurea, a palace so vast and extravagant that it covers nearly a third of Rome itself. At its centre sits an artificial lake, 100 feet deep, surrounded by gardens where only the emperor could walk. For decades, Romans have stared at this monument to imperial excess, this liquid reminder of a tyrant who built his paradise while their city burned. But Vespasian sees something different when he looks at that lake. He sees opportunity. Standing on its shores in the early morning mist with his architects and engineers gathered around him, Vespasian makes a declaration that will echo through history. Drain it, he says simply, every drop. Where Nero built his private pleasure, We will build the people's amphitheater. It's a stroke of political genius so elegant that it takes your breath away. With a single decision, Vespasian transforms the most hated symbol of imperial greed into the greatest gift Rome has ever received. He's not just building an amphitheater, he's giving Romans back their stolen city. But first, the water must go. The drainage operation begins immediately, and it's unlike anything Rome has ever attempted. Engineers must redirect underground springs that have fed this artificial lake for decades. Teams of workers, using primitive pumps powered by human labour, begin the slow process of emptying 100 feet of water from the marshy ground. As the water level drops, the true challenge reveals itself. The lake bed is not solid ground, but a mixture of clay, silt, and natural springs. Building the world's greatest amphitheatre on this unstable foundation should be impossible. Should be. But Roman engineers have a secret weapon, a revolutionary concrete mixture that will prove stronger in 2,000 years than it is the day they pour it. Made from volcanic ash, lime, and precisely measured aggregates, this concrete will set under water, harden in marshy conditions, and create foundations that modern engineers still struggle to replicate. The workforce arrives in extraordinary numbers. 12,000 Jewish prisoners, captured during the siege of Jerusalem just 2 years earlier, work alongside Roman craftsmen, freed slaves, and skilled labourers from across the empire. It's a mixing of cultures and talents rarely seen in the ancient world, all focused on a single impossible goal. The material requirements are staggering. 100,000 cubic metres of travertine limestone must be quarried from Tivoli, 20 miles away. Each block weighs several tons and must be transported by ox cart over rough Roman roads. The logistics alone would challenge a modern construction company, yet Roman organisation makes it look almost effortless. As the months pass, something remarkable happens. The lake that once symbolised imperial excess becomes a bustling construction site that employs thousands of Romans. Families who lost everything in the Civil War find work. Craftsmen discover new techniques. Engineers solve problems that have never been solved before. The foundation work moves with surprising speed. Roman concrete, mixed fresh each morning, is poured into carefully excavated trenches that form an enormous oval, 189 metres long and 156 metres wide. Underground springs that once fed Nero's lake are redirected through a complex system of drains and channels, turning a potential disaster into an asset. Vespasian visits the site regularly, not as a distant ruler observing his workers, but as a man invested in every detail. He speaks with the Jewish prisoners in their own language, consults with master craftsmen about their techniques, and even gets his hands dirty examining the quality of mortar and stone. Modern archaeological excavations have revealed something extraordinary beneath the Colosseum's arena floor. The remains of Nero's palace foundations, still visible after 2,000 years. Vespasian didn't just build over the Golden House, he built it into his amphitheatre, transforming symbols of tyranny into foundations of public joy. As 75 AD approaches, the foundation work nears completion. What once was an artificial lake where only emperors could sail their pleasure barges is now a perfectly engineered oval foundation, ready to support the weight of 50,000 spectators and the most complex entertainment machinery the world has ever seen. The vision is becoming reality. The political masterstroke is taking physical form. And across Rome, citizens who once felt betrayed by their rulers are beginning to believe again. Standing at the edge of the completed foundation, looking across the carefully measured oval that will soon become the Colosseum, Vespasian allows himself a moment of satisfaction. He has taken the most hated symbol in Rome and transformed it into the foundation of the most beloved. But this is only the beginning. The foundation is set, the vision is clear, and the most ambitious construction project in human history is ready to begin in earnest. Soon, the real engineering marvels will emerge from this carefully prepared ground. Innovations so advanced that they will influence architecture for the next 2,000 years. The year is 75 AD, and the greatest engineering minds of the Roman Empire are facing their most impossible challenge. How do you create an oval building that allows 50,000 people to hear a whisper from the arena floor? How do you design a basement so complex that gladiators and wild animals can appear through the ground as if by magic? How do you build a roof that can cover 5 acres, yet open and close at will? These are not theoretical questions. They are urgent problems that must be solved before a single stone can be placed above the foundation. In a workshop near the construction site, illuminated by oil lamps that flicker late into the night, Roman architects are doing something that has never been done before. They're designing entertainment technology. The lead architect, whose name history has forgotten, but whose genius lives in every stone, spreads out sheets of papyrus covered with geometric calculations. The building must be oval, not circular, because an oval creates perfect acoustics. Sound waves, bouncing off curved walls at precisely calculated angles, will carry the smallest whisper from the arena floor to the highest seats. But this is mathematics that won't be fully understood until the Renaissance, 1500 years in the future. These Roman engineers are working by instinct, experience, and trial and error, solving acoustic problems that modern concert halls struggle with today. The real innovation, however, lies beneath the ground. What they're planning for the Colosseum's basement, the Hypogeum, is engineering on a scale that defies comprehension. 15 feet below the arena floor, they will create a maze of corridors, chambers, and mechanical systems that stretches across the entire building. 24 animal lifts, operated by human-powered counterweights, will raise lions, tigers, elephants, and gladiators through trapdoors in the arena floor. Imagine the precision required. Each lift must be perfectly balanced, operated by teams of men working in coordination, timed to create the illusion of magical appearances. When a gladiator steps onto a platform 20 feet underground, 24 men above must pull in unison to raise him smoothly through a trapdoor that opens at exactly the right moment. The engineering drawings, sketched on precious papyrus by lamplight, show a mechanical system more complex than anything that will be built for another 1,000 years. Pulleys, counterweights, pivoting floors, removable bridges, and even primitive elevators that can lift a full-grown elephant 15 feet in 30 seconds. But the most ambitious innovation is still to come. The architects have decided that their amphitheater will do something no building has ever done before. It will become a lake when they choose, and a dry arena when they choose. The same space that hosts gladiatorial combat in the morning will hold full-scale naval battles in the afternoon, complete with warships and hundreds of sailors fighting to the death. To achieve this miracle, they're designing a flooding system that can fill the arena 3 feet deep with water in less than an hour, then drain it completely in half that time. Underground channels connected to Rome's aqueduct system will rush water in through carefully placed inlets. Hidden drains, positioned at exact intervals, will empty it faster than most modern stadiums could manage. The mathematics involved are staggering. Water pressure, drainage rates, structural integrity when tons of water press against underground walls, waterproofing techniques that must last for centuries, all calculated by men working with bronze instruments and papyrus scrolls. Meanwhile, naval architects are consulted for the first time in amphitheater design. How large can warships be and still maneuver in an oval arena? How many sailors can fight effectively in 3 feet of water? How do you prevent ships from damaging the arena walls during battle? Above ground, another team tackles an equally complex challenge: weather protection for 50,000 spectators. The Velarium, as they call it, will be the largest retractable roof system in human history. 240 wooden masts, each over 40 feet tall, will support a canvas awning that covers the entire amphitheater. The system will be operated by 1,000 sailors from the Roman Navy, men accustomed to rigging and rope work, who will live in barracks near the Colosseum specifically to manage this enormous sail. The engineering requires understanding wind patterns, fabric tension, support stress, and coordinated human movement on a scale never attempted. When fully deployed, the Velarium will create shade for every spectator, while allowing air to circulate freely. When retracted, it will store compactly around the building's perimeter. But perhaps the most sophisticated innovation is the crowd control system. 50,000 people entering and exiting through a single doorway would create deadly crushes. The solution is mathematical perfection: 80 numbered entrances, each corresponding to specific seating sections. Every spectator receives a pottery shard, called a tessera, marked with their entrance number and seat location. The architects calculate that 50,000 people can exit the building in under 15 minutes, a crowd control standard that many modern stadiums fail to meet. Each entrance is precisely positioned, each corridor exactly sized, each stairway angled for maximum flow without dangerous bottlenecks. Inside the seating area, social engineering meets architectural innovation. The building will physically enforce Rome's social hierarchy. Senators sit on marble seats closest to the action, their names carved into the stone. The middle class occupies stone benches on the second level. The poor, slaves and women sit on wooden seats at the top, furthest from the arena but with perfect acoustics ensuring they miss nothing. Even the Emperor's viewing box, the pulvinar, requires special engineering. It must provide the best view, maximum security, and direct access to underground tunnels that connect to the Imperial Palace. The Emperor can appear dramatically to great crowds, then disappear instantly if danger threatens. As 78 AD approaches, the engineering plans are complete. What exists on papyrus is a building unlike anything ever conceived. Part theatre, part military fortress, part mechanical marvel, part architectural masterpiece. The foundation is ready, the innovations are designed, the mathematical calculations are finished. Now comes the hardest part, building it. The next phase will test whether Roman engineering ambition can become Roman engineering reality. Whether these revolutionary designs, sketched by lamplight in workshops near Nero's former lake, can actually be constructed by human hands using ancient tools. The innovation phase is ending, the construction phase is about to begin, and what they build will change architecture forever. The blueprints are rolled away, the calculations are finished. Now, in the dawn light of 78 AD, comes the moment when engineering dreams must become physical reality. Across the construction site, the sound of hammers rings against stone in a rhythm that will continue for the next 2 years. Master masons, their hands already scarred from decades of precise work, begin the delicate process of placing the first travertine blocks above the foundation level. Each stone weighs as much as a small horse, yet must be positioned with jeweler's precision. Roman construction tolerances allow for errors measured in fractions of inches. A single misplaced block can throw off the entire oval's geometry, destroying the acoustic perfection that took months to calculate. The lifting technology is as impressive as the stones themselves. Wooden cranes, engineered with pulleys and counterweights, raise multi-ton blocks 40 feet into the air. Teams of 20 men operate each crane, their movements choreographed like dancers, their timing perfected through endless repetition. But the real marvel lies below ground, where the hypogeum system takes shape in underground darkness. Carving chambers from living rock, workers create a subterranean city beneath the arena floor. Corridors wide enough for elephants stretch in every direction. Animal holding areas, designed for creatures from across the known world, feature drainage systems for waste and ventilation shafts for fresh air. The lift mechanisms, those revolutionary platforms, that will make gladiators appear through the arena floor require precision that borders on art. Each platform must fit its shaft perfectly, with just enough clearance to move smoothly, but not enough to jam or wobble. The counterweight systems, operated by sweating teams in chambers below, must be balanced to lift a featherweight gladiator or a full-grown rhinoceros with equal control. Above ground, the seating rises in mathematical perfection. 49 rows of seats, each angled to provide optimal viewing, each positioned to ensure that no spectator blocks another's sightline. The engineers have calculated not just where people will sit, but how they will lean forward during exciting moments, how children will climb onto parents' laps, how crowd dynamics will shift during different types of entertainment. Stone carvers work with unprecedented precision. Each seat is individually shaped, each step worn smooth before a single spectator sets foot on it. For the wealthy sections, marble imported from Greek quarries is polished to mirror smoothness. For the upper levels, local stone receives equal attention, because Roman pride demands perfection at every social level. The arcade system, those iconic arches that will define the Colosseum's appearance for 2 millennia, emerges with breathtaking symmetry. 80 arches at ground level, 80 on the second story, 80 on the third, each one a masterpiece of engineering that distributes the building's enormous weight while creating an aesthetic rhythm that draws the eye upward. Between the arches, craftsmen install the numbering system that will guide spectators to their seats. Each entrance receives carved numerals, each section clear identification markers. The Roman genius for organisation, refined through centuries of military logistics, transforms potential chaos into orderly flow. As 79 AD progresses, something extraordinary happens. The scattered construction elements begin forming a recognisable whole. The oval emerges from mathematical theory into physical presence. The underground chambers connect into a coherent system. The seating areas reveal their acoustic properties as workers test voice projection from the arena floor. Then tragedy strikes the empire. Mount Vesuvius erupts, burying Pompeii and Herculaneum under volcanic ash. Emperor Vespasian dies suddenly, leaving the project to his son Titus. For months, construction slows as the new emperor redirects resources to disaster relief and establishes his political authority. But Titus understands the Colosseum's importance to his dynasty's legitimacy. Work resumes with renewed urgency. The young emperor visits the site weekly, consulting with architects, encouraging workers, and adding his own modifications to the design. The Valerium system, that massive retractable roof, undergoes final testing. Naval personnel borrowed from Rome's military fleets practice the complex choreography required to deploy and retract acres of canvas. The timing must be perfect. 1,000 men pulling ropes in coordination, each movement practiced until it becomes instinctive. The flooding system receives its first trials. Water rushes through underground channels, filling the arena to the predetermined depth. Roman engineers watch nervously as thousands of tons of water press against walls designed to contain it. The system works flawlessly. Water can fill the arena in 47 minutes, drain completely in 31. As 80 AD arrives, final details occupy every available craftsman. Decorative elements, carved with symbols of Roman power and divine favour, are installed throughout the building. The imperial viewing box receives gold leaf applications. Statues of gods and emperors find their designated positions. Most importantly, the underground machinery undergoes exhaustive testing. Gladiators practice emerging through trapdoors. Animal handlers rehearse the complex timing required to release wild beasts at precisely planned moments. The lift operators, working in teams below ground, perfect their coordination until elephants can rise through the arena floor as smoothly as prayers ascending to heaven. The moment arrives for the grand opening that will establish the Colosseum as the centre of Roman entertainment for the next 4 centuries. Titus proclaims 100 days of games, a celebration so extravagant that it will bankrupt lesser kingdoms. 5,000 exotic animals transported from the furthest reaches of the empire wait in the underground chambers. 2,000 gladiators, representing every fighting style known to Rome, prepare for the performance of their lives. The opening day arrives with pageantry that surpasses imperial coronations. 50,000 Romans wearing their finest clothing stream through the numbered entrances with military precision. The crowd control system works exactly as designed, filling the massive building without dangerous crushing or confusion. When the last spectator takes their seat, when the Valerium creates perfect shade, when the underground systems stand ready to produce their mechanical miracles, Titus rises in the imperial box. His voice, projected by acoustic engineering that amplifies whispers into clear speech, carries to every corner of the building. "Citizens of Rome," he proclaims, "I give you the Flavian amphitheater." The roar of 50,000 voices contained and focused by the oval walls creates a sound unlike anything heard before in human history. The Colosseum is no longer a construction project. It has become the beating heart of the Roman Empire. The roar fades to expectant silence. 50,000 pairs of eyes focus on the empty arena floor, waiting for the miracle they've been promised. Without warning, the sand erupts. A platform rises through what appeared to be solid ground, carrying a gladiator in gleaming bronze armour. Before the crowd can fully absorb this impossibility, another section of floor opens, revealing a snarling lion. Then another platform, another fighter, another beast, until the arena floor becomes a stage where Earth itself seems alive with emerging warriors and wild creatures. This is opening day of the greatest entertainment venue in human history, and Rome has never seen anything like it. The crowd explodes into cheers that shake dust from the highest arches. The underground machinery, tested for months in secrecy, performs its magic flawlessly. Gladiators appear and disappear through trapdoors as if summoned by gods. Exotic animals emerge from chambers below like creatures from mythological underworlds. Titus has spared no expense for this inaugural spectacle. Elephants from Africa lumber onto platforms that rise smoothly through perfectly fitted floor sections. Tigers from India pace in specially designed cages that transform into fighting arenas with the pull of hidden levers. Bears from Germania, rhinoceros from the Nile regions, leopards from the Atlas Mountains. Creatures that most Romans have only heard described in travellers' tales now prowl before their eyes. But the gladiators command equal fascination. These are not desperate criminals fighting for their lives. Many are professional athletes, trained in specialised schools, celebrated throughout the empire for their skill and courage. Thracians with their distinctive curved swords dance around heavily armoured secutores. Retiari, fighting with nets and tridents like ocean gods, face myrmillones whose fish-crested helmets gleam in the afternoon sun. The combat is real, the danger absolute, but death is not inevitable. Skilled gladiators are valuable investments. A fighter who survives multiple contests becomes a celebrity, whose name draws packed crowds. Betting on gladiatorial matches has become so popular that odds are calculated and posted throughout Rome before major games. Emperor Titus understands that spectacle must vary to maintain interest. Morning events feature elaborate animal hunts, where professional hunters called venatores demonstrate their skills against creatures from every corner of the known world. Archers on horseback pursue ostriches across the sand. Spearmen face charging wild boars. Teams of hunters coordinate attacks against lions that have never seen human settlements. Midday brings public executions transformed into theatrical presentations. Condemned criminals reenact famous mythological deaths. A man sentenced for murder becomes Icarus, fitted with wax wings that melt as he's lifted toward the sun by hidden mechanisms. Another criminal portrays Orpheus, torn apart by wild beasts while attempting to charm them with music. These productions require elaborate stage sets that rise through the arena floor on the same lift systems that bring gladiators into combat. Forests of real trees create hunting scenes. Artificial mountains provide dramatic backdrops for mythological tales. The arena floor becomes a canvas where any environment can be painted with wood, stone, and living creatures. But the afternoon gladiatorial contests draw the most passionate crowds. Starfighters develop devoted followings. Flamma, a Syrian gladiator, wins 34 contests and receives offers of freedom 4 times, choosing instead to continue fighting for the adoration of Rome. Women throw jewellery into the arena when their favourite gladiators triumph. Merchants sell miniature figurines of famous fighters outside the amphitheater. The economic impact extends far beyond Rome's walls. Gladiator schools throughout the empire train fighters specifically for Colosseum appearances. Animal trappers in Africa organise expeditions to capture creatures for Roman games. Weapons manufacturers create specialised equipment for different fighting styles. Ship captains plan routes around gladiatorial schedules, knowing that successful delivery of exotic animals can fund entire voyages. Under Emperor Domitian, Vespasian's younger son, the games reach new heights of extravagance. Night contests illuminated by thousands of torches create dramatic shadows that dance across the arena walls. Naval battles staged in the flooded amphitheater feature authentic warships with crews trained in actual naval combat techniques. These naumachii require logistical planning that rivals military campaigns. Ships must be small enough to maneuver in the confined space, yet large enough to carry fighting crews. The water depth must accommodate vessel drafts while ensuring that combat remains visible to spectators. Drainage systems must remove thousands of gallons quickly enough for afternoon events to proceed on schedule. The spectacles serve political purposes beyond entertainment. Successful games demonstrate imperial wealth and organisational capability. Generous emperors who provide frequent, elaborate contests earn popular loyalty that can survive military defeats or economic hardships. The crowd's cheers become a form of political polling, measuring imperial approval in real time. Emperor Trajan, the great military conqueror, celebrates his Dacian victories with games lasting 123 days. 9,000 gladiators participate, along with 11,000 animals representing species from Britain to India. The underground chambers become a menagerie that would challenge modern zoos for diversity and scale. The social dynamics within the amphitheater reflect Roman society in miniature. Senators debate politics between contests. Middle-class merchants conduct business deals during intermissions. Even slaves and women in the upper sections participate in the collective experience that unifies Rome across class boundaries for a few hours each day. Emperor Hadrian, the great builder and traveller, adds architectural refinements that enhance both safety and spectacle. Improved barriers protect spectators without obstructing views. Enhanced acoustics allow even subtle sounds from the arena floor to reach the highest seats clearly. New mechanical systems create special effects that blur the lines between reality and theatre. Under the Antonine emperors, the Golden Age reaches its peak. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, sponsors games that emphasize skill over brutality. Gladiatorial schools become centers of athletic excellence where fighters study strategy, physical conditioning, and tactical innovation with the intensity of military academies. The Colosseum has evolved from construction project to cultural institution. Its rhythms regulate Roman life. Citizens plan schedules around game announcements. Families save money for months to afford good seats for special celebrations. Children throughout the empire dream of someday witnessing the legendary spectacles they hear described by travelling merchants and returning soldiers. For over a century, this golden age continues. The underground machinery operates flawlessly, maintained by teams of specialists who understand every pulley, counterweight, and drainage channel. The building itself shows minimal wear despite hosting hundreds of events each year. But empires, like buildings, experience cycles of strength and decline. As the 2nd century draws to a close, subtle changes begin affecting the games. The cost of capturing and transporting exotic animals strains even imperial budgets. Political instability makes long-term planning difficult. New religious movements question the morality of gladiatorial entertainment. The golden age of the Colosseum, that magnificent century when Roman engineering served Roman spectacle in perfect harmony, is approaching its end. Yet the echoes of those roaring crowds, the memory of those impossible mechanical marvels, the legacy of human achievement and human folly intertwined in sand and stone, will resonate through the empty arches for centuries to come. The echoes of that roaring golden age still reverberate through the stone corridors, but something fundamental is shifting in the Roman world. As the 3rd century dawns, a carpenter's son from Nazareth, crucified 2 centuries earlier in an obscure corner of the empire, begins to challenge the very foundations of Roman entertainment. His followers, once hidden in catacombs beneath the city, now walk openly through Rome's streets, carrying a message that will transform the Colosseum from temple of spectacle into symbol of martyrdom. The change comes slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Emperor Septimius Severus still sponsors elaborate games, but the crowds seem different. Scattered throughout the cheering masses sit men and women who watch with troubled expressions as gladiators fall in the sand. They are Christians, and their growing numbers represent a philosophical revolution that will ultimately empty these stone seats forever. The early Christian writers, men like Tertullian and Augustine, begin crafting arguments against the games that cut to the heart of Roman values. How, they ask, can a civilization that claims to value human dignity celebrate human destruction as entertainment? How can an empire that seeks divine favour build its leisure upon bloodshed? These are not merely theological questions. They strike at the economic and social foundations of imperial life. The gladiatorial industry employs tens of thousands across the empire. Gladiator schools, weapon manufacturers, animal trappers, arena maintenance crews, food vendors, betting coordinators. Entire cities depend on the games for their prosperity. When Christian emperors begin questioning the morality of these spectacles, they're not just changing entertainment policies, they're restructuring the imperial economy. Constantine the Great, the first Christian emperor, faces this dilemma directly when he takes power in 312 AD. Political pragmatism demands that he maintain popular entertainment that keeps Rome's masses content. Christian conviction compels him to end practices his faith considers barbaric. His solution reveals the complexity of transforming an empire's soul. Rather than banning gladiatorial games outright, Constantine restricts them gradually. New regulations limit the types of combat allowed. Fights to the death become less frequent, replaced by contests that emphasize skill over mortality. The underground chambers that once held condemned criminals awaiting execution, as entertainment begin housing fewer prisoners, their cells echoing with emptiness where once they rang with desperate prayers. The economic impact becomes visible immediately. Gladiator schools, once profitable businesses, struggle to maintain enrollment when death rates decrease and public interest wanes. Animal importers find their markets shrinking as beast hunts lose popularity among increasingly Christian audiences. The complex supply chains that supported the games begin contracting like muscles deprived of exercise, but nature abhors a vacuum, and the Colosseum adapts. Religious ceremonies begin taking place in the arena where gladiators once fought. Christian bishops, standing where emperors once sat, deliver sermons to congregations that fill the stone seats. The acoustics that once amplified crowd cheers now carry prayers and hymns to every corner of the ancient amphitheater. Archaeological evidence suggests that by 350 AD, small chapels have been established in some of the underground chambers. Former gladiator preparation rooms become places of Christian worship. Animal holding areas are converted into spaces for religious instruction. The building that once celebrated death begins nurturing spiritual life. Emperor Julian, called the Apostate for his attempt to restore traditional Roman religion, briefly revives the games with their original intensity. For 3 years, from 361 to 363 AD, the Colosseum roars again with crowds cheering gladiatorial combat. Animals once more emerge through trapdoors to face human opponents. The underground machinery operates at near Golden Age efficiency. But Julian's death ends this classical revival as abruptly as it began. His Christian successors, Valentinian and Theodosius, implement restrictions that prove more permanent than Constantine's cautious reforms. Theodosius officially bans gladiatorial contests throughout the empire in 393 AD, though enforcement remains sporadic, and local resistance continues for decades. The final recorded gladiatorial contest takes place under Emperor Honorius in 435 AD. Historical accounts describe a ceremony more memorial than celebration, where the last professional gladiators demonstrate their skills before retiring into history. The crowd, smaller than the building has seen in generations, watches with the solemnity of witnessing an era's end. Telemachus, a Christian monk, reportedly leaps into the arena during one of these final contests to separate fighting gladiators with his bare hands. The crowd, enraged by this interruption of their traditional entertainment, stones him to death. His martyrdom, ironically occurring in the same sand where thousands of earlier Christians died as entertainment, provides the symbolic punctuation mark that ends the gladiatorial age forever. With the games concluded, the Colosseum faces an identity crisis unprecedented in its 3.5-century history. The underground machinery, no longer needed for producing gladiators and wild animals, falls silent. The lift platforms, once operated multiple times daily, rest motionless in their shafts. Counterweight systems, maintained by teams of specialists for generations, begin showing signs of neglect as their operators seek employment elsewhere. Yet the building itself remains structurally sound. Roman engineering, designed for permanence, continues supporting the massive amphitheater even as its original purpose disappears. The question becomes not whether the Colosseum can survive, but what it will become. Religious transformation accelerates during the 5th century. Pope Leo the Great officially declares the Colosseum a Christian site, acknowledging the tradition that thousands of early Christians died in its arena. While historians debate whether significant Christian martyrdoms actually occurred in the Colosseum versus other Roman amphitheatres, the symbolic power of the association proves more important than strict historical accuracy. Pilgrims begin arriving from throughout the Christian world to pray where they believe their spiritual ancestors suffered for their faith. The arena floor, once covered with sand to absorb gladiator blood, becomes a destination for religious meditation. Underground chambers that housed exotic animals transform into shrines where pilgrims leave offerings and prayers. Meanwhile, practical Romans begin recognizing that the enormous building represents a resource too valuable to abandon. Merchants establish workshops in some of the lower arcades. Families, displaced by barbarian invasions and economic instability, claim living space in chambers originally designed for entertainment infrastructure. The Colosseum begins its transformation from single-purpose entertainment venue to multi-use urban space. Residential areas develop in sections of the building furthest from the arena floor. Commercial activities cluster near the original entrance arches. Religious sites occupy symbolically significant locations throughout the structure. This gradual repurposing reflects broader changes in Roman society. The empire that once commanded resources from Britain to Egypt now struggles to maintain basic urban services in its capital city. Citizens adapt by creating smaller, more self-sufficient communities within the shells of imperial grandeur. Natural forces also begin reshaping the ancient amphitheater. Earthquakes in 442 and 508 AD damage significant portions of the structure, particularly the southern wall. Rather than undertaking costly repairs that the imperial treasury can no longer afford, Romans begin removing stones from damaged sections for use in new construction projects. This stone recycling, which will accelerate dramatically in coming centuries, begins during the late imperial period as a matter of practical necessity rather than deliberate destruction. The Colosseum's own building materials start contributing to the construction of early Christian churches throughout Rome. As the 6th century approaches, the transformation is nearly complete. The building that once symbolized Roman imperial power at its peak has become a Christian pilgrimage site, a residential neighborhood, a commercial district, and a construction material source simultaneously. The roar of 50,000 spectators has been replaced by the murmur of prayers, the sounds of daily domestic life, the conversations of merchants, and the quiet work of stone masons carefully removing blocks for transport to new projects. Yet something essential remains unchanged. The Colosseum continues to serve Rome, continues to adapt to Roman needs, continues to demonstrate the remarkable flexibility of inspired architecture. The games are over, but the building story is just beginning its next chapter. The building story enters its most extraordinary chapter as Rome itself transforms from the center of a global empire into a medieval city struggling to survive among its own magnificent ruins. By 500 AD, the Colosseum has become something unimaginable to its imperial architects, a vertical village where entire generations of Roman families live, work, pray, and die within walls originally designed for imperial entertainment. The Frangipani family, descendants of Roman nobility who managed to retain wealth and influence through the empire's collapse, make a decision that will define the Colosseum for the next 4 centuries. They claim the massive structure as their family fortress, transforming the ancient amphitheater into the most imposing defensive position in medieval Rome. Working with military engineers experienced in castle construction, the Frangipanis begin modifications that turn entertainment architecture into military installation. Wooden towers, reaching 40 feet above the original stone walls, provide elevated defensive positions with commanding views across the Roman countryside. Arrow slits are cut through ancient arches, creating firing positions that can repel attackers from multiple directions simultaneously. The arena floor itself becomes a central courtyard where horses graze and soldiers practice combat techniques. The underground chambers, once home to gladiators and exotic animals, now store weapons, grain supplies, and family treasures. Massive wooden gates, reinforced with iron bands, seal the original entrances against enemies who might attempt to storm this stone citadel. Medieval Rome has become a dangerous place, where noble families wage private wars against each other, with the frequency that their ancestors once held gladiatorial games. The Colosseum's strategic position, its existing defensive advantages, and its symbolic connection to Roman power make it the most coveted military stronghold in the city. But the Frangipanas are not the building's only inhabitants. Families displaced by barbarian invasions, economic collapse, and political instability have claimed living spaces throughout the structure. Former gladiator preparation chambers, originally designed to hold warriors awaiting combat, now shelter parents, children, and grandparents who have nowhere else to go. These medieval Romans create remarkably complete communities within the ancient walls. Workshops occupy spaces near the original entrances, taking advantage of natural lighting and access to customers. Blacksmiths work in chambers that once held exotic animals, their forges glowing where lions once paced. Weavers establish studios in areas originally designed for gladiator equipment storage, their looms clicking rhythmically in spaces that once rang with the sound of sharpening swords. The domestic arrangements reveal ingenious adaptations to ancient architecture. Families partition large chambers using wooden screens and hanging fabrics, creating private spaces within the communal structure. Cooking fires are carefully managed in designated areas with adequate ventilation, utilizing the sophisticated air circulation systems originally designed to keep underground chambers habitable for animals and gladiators. Water access, always crucial for dense urban populations, takes advantage of the Colosseum's original plumbing infrastructure. The same channels that once flooded the arena for naval battles now supply drinking water and waste removal for medieval residents. Roman engineering, designed for permanence, continues functioning centuries after its original purpose has been forgotten. Children born in these medieval Colosseum communities grow up playing in chambers, where emperors once watched gladiatorial combat. They learn to navigate the complex underground passages as easily as modern children learn to cross city streets. For them, this is not an ancient monument, but simply home, as familiar and comfortable as any medieval dwelling. Religious transformation accelerates throughout the medieval period. By 600 AD, at least 6 separate Christian churches have been established within the Colosseum's walls. The arena floor hosts a church dedicated to Saints Peter and Paul, its altar positioned where gladiatorial contests once began. Underground chambers become chapels devoted to various saints, their walls decorated with religious frescoes painted directly over ancient Roman stonework. The Church of Santa Maria della Pietà occupies a prominent position in the eastern section, its bells calling medieval Romans to prayer from the same arches that once framed imperial spectacles. Mass is celebrated where crowds once cheered for their favourite gladiators, the echoing Latin of Christian liturgy replacing the roars of ancient entertainment. Monastic communities establish themselves in quieter sections of the building. Benedictine monks, devoted to prayer and scholarship, create scriptoriums in former administrative offices where gladiatorial records were once maintained. They copy religious manuscripts by candlelight in chambers where betting odds on gladiatorial contests were once calculated. These religious institutions bring stability and organisation to the Colosseum's medieval communities. Church authorities mediate disputes between families, organise communal work projects, and maintain the educational and charitable services that secular government can no longer provide. But medieval Rome also needs building materials, and the earthquake-damaged Colosseum becomes the city's most convenient source of high-quality stone. The systematic removal of Colosseum stone begins as a carefully managed operation. Master masons, working with church approval and noble family permission, select damaged sections for careful dismantling. Each block is examined for quality, sorted by size and condition, then transported to construction sites throughout Rome. The stone recycling operation employs hundreds of workers over several centuries. Specialized teams develop techniques for removing individual blocks without damaging surrounding structure. Wooden scaffolding, ropes, pulleys, and controlled demolition methods allow selective harvesting of building materials while preserving inhabited sections. St. Peter's Basilica, the spiritual center of medieval Christianity, incorporates Colosseum stone into its foundations and walls. The irony is deliberate. Stones that once supported pagan entertainment now uphold Christian worship. Palazzo Venezia, residence of powerful noble families, displays Colosseum marble in its courtyards and reception halls. The stone removal process creates a curious archaeological record. Medieval masons, working by candlelight in underground chambers, sometimes discover artifacts left by gladiators, animal handlers, and Roman officials. These findings, weapons, coins, personal items, inscriptions, are often incorporated into new construction as curiosities or good luck charms. By 800 AD, the systematic stone removal has altered the Colosseum's appearance significantly. The southern wall, damaged by early earthquakes, has been largely dismantled. The western sections show gaps where entire arcades have been carefully removed. Yet the essential structure remains stable, testament to Roman engineering that anticipated partial damage without total collapse. Medieval chroniclers begin recording legends about the building's origin and purpose. Without written records from the imperial period, and lacking understanding of Roman engineering capabilities, medieval Romans developed fantastic explanations for the Colosseum's existence. Some believe it was built by demons working at supernatural speed. explaining engineering achievements beyond medieval comprehension. Others claim it was created by giants who lived before the Great Flood, accounting for its massive scale and impossible precision. A few scholars working with fragmentary Latin texts recognize its Roman origins but cannot grasp the complexity of gladiatorial entertainment that once filled its chambers. These medieval legends reflect the building's transition from functional architecture to mysterious monument. For people living within its walls, the Colosseum is simply home. For visitors from distant regions, it represents an inexplicable wonder from a lost civilization. The earthquakes of 847 and 1231 AD cause additional structural damage, but medieval Romans respond with characteristic pragmatism. Rather than attempting comprehensive repairs beyond their technical capabilities, they adapt their communities to work around the damage. Collapsed sections become sources of building materials. Structurally sound areas accommodate increased population density. Noble families continue using the Colosseum as a fortress throughout the medieval period. The Annibaldi family succeeds the Frangipanis as primary controllers, maintaining the defensive modifications while adding their own architectural improvements. Guard towers are rebuilt using more advanced medieval construction techniques. Living quarters for noble family members are expanded and decorated with artwork reflecting medieval tastes. Trade and commerce flourish within the medieval Colosseum community. Markets operate in the original entrance arcades, taking advantage of the natural covered spaces and steady foot traffic. Merchants from throughout medieval Europe recognize the Colosseum as a reliable trading centre, where goods can be exchanged safely under the protection of resident noble families. Craft guilds establish workshops in specialised sections of the building. Leatherworkers, metalworkers, cloth, merchants and food vendors create a diverse economic ecosystem within the ancient walls. The building's various levels and chambers provide ideal separation between different trades, while maintaining convenient access to shared resources. As the 13th century progresses, the medieval Colosseum community reaches its peak population and complexity. Hundreds of families call the ancient amphitheater home. Multiple churches serve spiritual needs. Markets and workshops provide economic opportunities. Noble families offer military protection. Schools and hospitals, operated by religious orders, serve educational and medical needs. This medieval transformation represents one of the most successful adaptive reuses of ancient architecture in European history. The Colosseum has not merely survived the fall of the Roman Empire. It has evolved into a thriving medieval community that serves every human need within walls originally designed for a single, now vanished purpose. The building continues its remarkable journey through time, carrying forward both the stones of its Roman past and the lives of its medieval present, preparing for yet another transformation as Renaissance consciousness begins stirring in the Italian cities. The Renaissance dawn breaking over medieval Rome brings with it a new kind of vision, one that will transform how the world sees this ancient amphitheater forever. As the 14th century gives way to the 15th, a generation of scholars emerges who possess something their medieval predecessors lacked: the ability to read classical Latin texts with scholarly precision and an insatiable curiosity about the civilization that created such impossible architecture. Poggio Bracciolini, the renowned humanist and manuscript hunter, stands in the Colosseum's arena on a spring morning in 1430, holding a fragmentary copy of Suetonius' Lives of the 12 Caesars. For the first time in nearly 1,000 years, someone is reading the original Roman accounts of gladiatorial games while standing in the very space where those spectacles unfolded. The revelation transforms everything. Medieval Romans had lived comfortably within these walls without fully understanding their original purpose. Renaissance scholars, armed with recovered classical texts, suddenly grasped the staggering ambition and engineering sophistication of what their ancestors had built. The underground chambers are not mysterious cellars, but a complex mechanical system designed to stage elaborate entertainment. The arena floor was not always a courtyard, but a stage where life and death dramas played out before 50,000 spectators. This scholarly awakening creates immediate consequences for the medieval communities still residing within the Colosseum's walls. Leone Battista Alberti, the great Renaissance architect and theorist, arrives in 1436 with measuring instruments, drawing materials, and a team of assistants. His mission is unprecedented: to document every dimension, every proportion, every architectural detail of the ancient amphitheater with mathematical precision. Working by torchlight in underground chambers still occupied by medieval families, Alberti's team measures corridor widths, ceiling heights, and structural angles. They map the lift shaft systems, trace the drainage channels, and calculate the geometric relationships that create the building's acoustic properties. Their findings, published in architectural treatises that circulate throughout Renaissance Europe, reveal engineering principles that influenced the design of churches, palaces, and public buildings from Florence to Prague. But this scholarly attention brings unwelcome scrutiny to the Colosseum's medieval residents. Renaissance humanists, fired with enthusiasm for classical purity, begin viewing the medieval modifications as corruptions of ancient perfection. The wooden towers added by noble families are seen as barbaric intrusions upon refined Roman design. The workshops and living quarters carved from ancient chambers represent medieval ignorance destroying classical beauty. Pressure builds for restoration that would remove medieval additions and return the Colosseum to its imagined original appearance. This Renaissance vision, while architecturally sophisticated, threatens to displace hundreds of families who have called these ancient stones home for generations. The conflict reaches crisis during the papacy of Nicholas II, who commissions comprehensive plans for clearing the Colosseum of its medieval inhabitants and restoring it as a monument to classical achievement. Fortunately for the resident families, the Pope's death in 1455 ends this ambitious project before it can devastate their communities. Yet Renaissance interest in the Colosseum continues intensifying throughout the 15th and 16th centuries. Andrea Palladio, the architectural genius whose buildings will define classical style for centuries, spends months studying the Colosseum's proportional systems. His careful analysis reveals that the ancient architects used mathematical ratios based on musical harmonies, creating visual rhythms that please the eye just as musical intervals please the ear. Palladio's architectural treatises, illustrated with precise drawings of Colosseum details, spread this knowledge throughout Europe. Churches in England, government buildings in America, and private residences across the continent will incorporate proportional systems first perfected in this Roman amphitheater. The artistic impact proves equally profound. Renaissance painters, fascinated by the dramatic possibilities of ancient ruins, begin creating landscapes where the Colosseum appears as a romantic backdrop for biblical and mythological scenes. These paintings, circulated through the emerging European art market, establish the visual vocabulary that will define how the world sees ancient Rome for the next 4 centuries. Giovanni Battista Piranesi, the master printmaker of architectural fantasy, creates etchings of the Colosseum that capture both its monumental grandeur and its picturesque decay. His images, reproduced and distributed throughout 18th century Europe, make the Colosseum one of the most recognizable buildings in the world decades before photography exists. But the most significant Renaissance development proves to be ecclesiastical rather than artistic. Pope Benedict XIV, responding to growing Catholic devotion to early Christian martyrs, issues a papal bull in 1749 that fundamentally changes the Colosseum's status. He officially declares the ancient amphitheater a sacred Christian site, consecrated by the blood of martyrs who died there during the imperial persecutions. This declaration, while historically questionable, creates powerful practical consequences. As a sacred Christian site, the Colosseum receives church protection against further stone quarrying and vandalism. The systematic removal of building materials, which had continued for over a millennium, finally ends. More importantly, the sacred site designation attracts Christian pilgrims from throughout Europe and beyond. The Grand Tour, that educational journey undertaken by wealthy young Europeans, now includes the Colosseum as an essential stop for spiritual as well as cultural reasons. These 18th century pilgrims arrive with expectations shaped by Renaissance scholarship and romantic imagination. They come seeking both classical learning and Christian inspiration, viewing the ancient amphitheater as a symbol of both imperial grandeur and religious martyrdom. The pilgrimage experience becomes highly ritualized. Visitors follow established routes through the underground chambers, now interpreted as prisons where Christian martyrs awaited their fate. They pray at stations established throughout the building, each one commemorating different aspects of early Christian suffering. They collect small pieces of stone and fragments of brick as sacred relics. Local Roman guides, responding to tourist demand, develop elaborate narratives that blend historical fact with religious legend and romantic fantasy. These stories, repeated to thousands of visitors over decades, create a mythology around the Colosseum that often proves more influential than scholarly research. The economic impact on Rome proves substantial. Pilgrimage tourism brings foreign currency, supports local craftsmen who create religious souvenirs, and employs guides, translators, and hospitality services. The medieval families still residing in parts of the Colosseum benefit by offering simple accommodations and meals to visiting pilgrims. Yet the influx of tourists also accelerates changes that threaten the building's medieval communities. Wealthy visitors, struck by the romantic appeal of living among ancient ruins, begin purchasing or renting spaces within the Colosseum. These Renaissance and Baroque gentlemen, seeking the aesthetic experience of dwelling within classical architecture, gradually displace working families who need the space for practical survival rather than cultural experience. The transformation reflects broader changes in Roman society as the Renaissance evolves into the Baroque period and then into the Enlightenment. Rome itself transitions from a medieval city where ancient ruins serve practical purposes to an early modern capital where archaeological sites become cultural attractions. Scholarly investigation intensifies throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. Antiquarians, working with increasingly scientific methods, begin systematic excavations of the underground chambers. Their discoveries, fragments of gladiatorial equipment, animal bones, inscriptions, coins, provide the first concrete evidence of how the ancient entertainment system actually functioned. These archaeological findings revolutionize understanding of Roman civilization. The Colosseum is revealed not just as impressive architecture, but as the centerpiece of a sophisticated entertainment industry that employed thousands of people and generated enormous economic activity. The botanical discoveries prove equally fascinating. 18th century naturalists exploring the Colosseum's ruins with scientific precision catalogue over 400 different plant species growing wild within the ancient walls. Seeds transported in animal fur and bird feathers from the far corners of the Roman Empire had taken root and flourished for centuries in the unique microclimate created by the building's architecture. This accidental botanical garden, growing in the cracks between ancient stones, becomes a living symbol of how nature reclaims human achievement. Romantic poets and artists, influenced by emerging ideas about the sublime and the picturesque, see in these wild plants a metaphor for time's power over even the greatest human accomplishments. The shift in artistic sensibility reaches its peak during the late 18th century as Romanticism begins displacing Renaissance classicism. Where Renaissance scholars admired the Colosseum's architectural perfection, Romantic artists celebrate its picturesque decay. Where earlier visitors sought to understand Roman engineering, Romantic pilgrims come to contemplate the transience of earthly power. Edward Gibbon, researching his monumental Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, spends long hours in the Colosseum's underground chambers, using the physical evidence of decay to illustrate his philosophical arguments about the inevitable collapse of civilizations. His influential work, shaped by direct experience of the Roman ruins, helps establish the Colosseum as a symbol of empire's rise and fall. By 1800, the transformation is complete. The Colosseum has evolved from medieval neighbourhood to Renaissance study, subject to Baroque pilgrimage site to Romantic symbol. The ancient amphitheater now serves the modern world as a monument to classical achievement, Christian martyrdom, and the sublime power of time itself. The building stands ready for its next transformation as the 19th century brings new technologies, new scholarly methods, and new challenges that will test the endurance of stones laid 18 centuries earlier. Yet something essential remains unchanged. The Colosseum continues adapting to serve human needs, continues inspiring human imagination, continues demonstrating the remarkable resilience of inspired architecture. The 19th century arrives with revolutionary tools that will finally unlock the Colosseum's deepest secrets. Where Romantic poets had gazed upon mysterious ruins and contemplated the sublime passage of time, a new generation of investigators approaches the ancient amphitheater with scientific instruments, systematic excavation methods, and an insatiable hunger for factual understanding rather than aesthetic inspiration. Carlo Fea, appointed as Rome's first official archaeological commissioner in 1802, stands at the threshold of this transformation. Armed with surveying equipment, detailed documentation protocols and teams of trained excavators, he initiates the first truly scientific exploration of the Colosseum's underground systems since the fall of the Roman Empire. The initial discoveries stagger even experienced archaeologists. Beneath centuries of accumulated debris, medieval modifications and natural overgrowth, the excavation teams uncover mechanical systems of breathtaking complexity. The hypogeum, glimpsed partially by Renaissance scholars, reveals itself as a three-dimensional maze of chambers, corridors and machinery that rivals modern subway construction for sophistication and scale. Wooden lift mechanisms, preserved by the dry conditions of underground chambers, emerge from the earth virtually intact after 18 centuries. Archaeologists can trace rope channels, counterweight systems, and pivoting platforms with precision that allows them to understand exactly how gladiators and wild animals appeared through the arena floor as if summoned by magic. The drainage systems prove equally impressive. Channels carved through solid rock, lined with hydraulic cement that remains watertight after 2 millennia, demonstrate engineering capabilities that challenge 19th century construction standards. The mathematical precision required to create proper water flow gradients, calculated without modern instruments, reveals Roman engineering sophistication that European architects are only beginning to appreciate. But the most profound discoveries emerge from systematic excavation of the gladiatorial chambers. In 1813, excavators working in the eastern underground sections uncover a sealed room that has remained undisturbed since the final gladiatorial contests of the 5th century. Inside, they find personal belongings left by fighters who walked through these chambers on their way to combat, leather armor fragments, bronze helmet pieces, even graffiti scratched into stone walls by men awaiting their turn in the arena. One inscription, carved in rough Latin letters, reads, Marcus Attilius, Thracian, victor in 12 contests, hopes to see his son again. The human immediacy of this message, written by a gladiator nearly 1500 years earlier, transforms archaeological understanding from abstract historical study to deeply personal human connection. The excavations reveal evidence of the Colosseum's sophisticated support systems. Gladiatorial schools maintained medical facilities underground, complete with surgical instruments and pharmaceutical storage areas. Animal handling areas included veterinary treatment spaces where exotic creatures received care from specialists who understood species imported from Africa, Asia, and Northern Europe. Food preparation areas, uncovered in the northern sections, show evidence of elaborate catering operations that fed not only gladiators and staff, but also provided refreshments for spectators. The logistics of feeding 50,000 people during day-long events required organizational capabilities that rival modern stadium management. Giuseppe Valadier, the renowned architect and archaeologist, begins the first comprehensive restoration efforts in the 1820s. Unlike earlier interventions motivated by aesthetic preferences or religious devotion, Valadier's work applies emerging principles of scientific conservation that prioritize structural stability and historical accuracy over artistic interpretation. His team develops innovative techniques for stabilizing ancient masonry without altering original construction methods. They use Roman-style mortar, mixed according to recipes discovered in classical texts, to repair damaged sections. Iron reinforcements, carefully hidden within existing stonework, provide additional support without compromising the building's historical integrity. The restoration work reveals architectural details that had been invisible for centuries. Original paint traces, preserved in protected areas, show that the Colosseum's interior was once decorated with brilliant colours rather than the weathered grey stone familiar to modern visitors. Gold leaf fragments found in the imperial viewing areas suggest decorative richness that medieval and Renaissance observers never imagined. Archaeological investigation expands throughout the 19th century as new excavation technologies become available. Steam-powered machinery allows removal of debris that had accumulated over more than a millennium. Photography, invented in the 1840s, provides the first accurate visual documentation of discoveries as they emerge from the earth. the photographic record proves invaluable for scholarly research. Images captured during excavation show architectural details that become damaged or lost during subsequent decades. Photographs of inscriptions, artifacts, and structural elements create permanent documentation that allows future researchers to study discoveries they never witnessed directly. International scholarly collaboration develops as the Colosseum's significance becomes recognized throughout the European academic community. German archaeologists contribute expertise in stratigraphy and systematic excavation. French scholars apply advanced techniques in epigraphy and historical analysis. British researchers bring experience in managing large-scale archaeological projects. This collaboration produces the first comprehensive scholarly publications devoted entirely to Colosseum studies. Multi-volume works, illustrated with precise architectural drawings and detailed photographs, disseminate research findings to universities and libraries throughout the world. The ancient amphitheater becomes a subject of international academic investigation rather than merely a local Roman curiosity. The 20th century brings challenges that test both the building's physical endurance and humanity's commitment to its preservation. During World War II, the Colosseum serves as an air raid shelter for Roman civilians fleeing Allied bombing campaigns. The underground chambers, originally designed to house gladiators and wild animals, now protect families from aerial warfare that the ancient architects could never have imagined. The wartime experience demonstrates the building's continued relevance to Roman life. Citizens seeking safety in the ancient corridors experience direct physical connection to their historical heritage. Children born during air raids and gladiatorial chambers carry forward living memories of the Colosseum as protector rather than entertainment venue. Post-war reconstruction efforts, funded by international organizations recognizing the Colosseum's global cultural significance, apply advanced engineering techniques developed during wartime innovation. Reinforced concrete, carefully integrated with ancient masonry, provides structural support that ensures the building's survival for future generations. The 1950s and 1960s witnessed the development of modern tourist infrastructure designed to accommodate unprecedented visitor numbers. Millions of people, traveling by automobile and commercial aviation, arrive annually to experience the ancient amphitheater firsthand. This mass tourism creates new preservation challenges. Foot traffic wears away stone surfaces that had survived for centuries. Visitor-generated humidity affects the underground chamber's microclimate. Modern pollution, particularly from automobile exhaust, accelerates chemical deterioration of ancient marble and limestone. Innovative conservation techniques emerge to address these modern threats. Laser cleaning technology, developed for industrial applications, removes pollution stains without damaging underlying stone. Climate control systems, invisible to visitors, regulate temperature and humidity in sensitive areas. Visitor flow management based on crowd psychology research protects fragile sections while maintaining public access. The 1980 UNESCO World Heritage Site designation recognizes the Colosseum's irreplaceable value to human civilization. This international status provides legal protection, funding access, and scholarly resources that ensure professional conservation standards. Digital technology revolutionizes both conservation and public education during the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Three-dimensional laser scanning creates precise measurements of every architectural element. Computer modeling allows virtual reconstruction of damaged sections. Digital archives preserve research data for future scholars working with technologies not yet invented. Virtual reality experiences, available to visitors since 2010, allow people to witness gladiatorial contests and naval battles as they might have appeared during the imperial period. These reconstructions, based on rigorous archaeological research, provide educational experiences that complement rather than replace direct contact with authentic ancient stones. Contemporary conservation efforts focus on climate change impacts that threaten the building's long-term survival. Rising temperatures affect stone expansion and contraction cycles. Changing precipitation patterns alter groundwater levels that influence foundation stability. Increased severe weather events test structural resilience designed for Mediterranean conditions that no longer exist. The Colosseum's modern role extends beyond tourism and scholarship to encompass global symbolic functions. International human rights organizations use its image to represent struggles against oppression. Environmental groups invoke its longevity to illustrate humanity's potential for creating sustainable achievements. Educational institutions worldwide use its story to teach lessons about engineering, history, politics, and cultural development. Recent archaeological discoveries continue revealing new information about ancient Roman civilization. Ground-penetrating radar has identified previously unknown chambers beneath the current excavation level. Chemical analysis of arena sand samples provides evidence about the types of spectacles that took place. DNA analysis of bone fragments found in drainage systems offers insights into the diversity of animals imported for the games. As the 21st century progresses, the Colosseum faces its next transformation. Climate-controlled visitor centres, built with minimal visual impact, provide educational facilities that protect both artifact and tourists. Sustainable tourism initiatives balance public access with conservation requirements. International cooperation ensures that the world's most famous ancient building receives the care necessary for survival through future millennia. The archaeological age has revealed the Colosseum's secrets, while creating new responsibilities for its protection. Modern science has answered questions that puzzled observers for centuries, while generating new mysteries that future researchers will investigate with technologies not yet imagined. And now, as our journey through 2 millennia draws to its quiet close, we find ourselves back where we began, standing in the gentle silence of the Colosseum at rest. The late afternoon sun filters through the ancient arches with golden tenderness, casting long shadows that stretch across stones worn smooth by countless footsteps. The crowds have departed for the day. The tour guides have finished their final presentations. The last echoes of camera clicks and whispered conversations have faded into the Roman twilight. What remains is something far more profound than spectacle or scholarship. It is the profound stillness of a place that has witnessed the entire arc of human experience. Listen to that silence. It carries within it the whispered prayers of medieval children who played among these ruins when they were home rather than monument. It holds the quiet concentration of Renaissance scholars, measuring angles by candlelight, seeking to understand the mathematical poetry of ancient proportions. It embraces the gentle footsteps of romantic pilgrims who came seeking not entertainment, but enlightenment. This is sacred silence, sanctified not by any single faith, but by the accumulated reverence of centuries. Every stone beneath your feet has been touched by hands that belong to gladiators preparing for combat, emperors making political calculations, medieval mothers teaching their children, Renaissance artists sketching architectural details, modern archaeologists brushing dust from precious discoveries. The Colosseum's greatest achievement is not its engineering, remarkable though that remains. It is not its historical significance, profound though that proves. Its greatest achievement is its demonstration of architecture's power to transcend its original purpose and serve humanity across the vastness of time itself. Consider the miracle of adaptive survival you have witnessed tonight. These walls began as entertainment venue for a civilization obsessed with spectacle. They transformed into fortress protecting medieval families from chaos beyond their control. They evolved into pilgrimage destination offering spiritual solace to seekers from distant lands. They became scholarly laboratory where human knowledge advanced through careful investigation. They emerged as global symbol representing both achievement and humility before the passage of time. Through each transformation, the essential spirit remained unchanged. The Colosseum continued serving human needs with dignity, flexibility, and enduring strength. The evening breeze stirs through the upper arches, carrying with it the scent of Roman pine trees that have grown in the surrounding parks. This gentle wind has blown through these openings for nearly 2,000 years, carrying the same message of continuity across generations separated by centuries but united by their shared wonder at this magnificent creation. Modern Rome spreads beyond the ancient walls, its lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Traffic moves along streets that follow routes established when gladiators walked these same pathways toward their moments of destiny. Families gather for dinner in restaurants built upon foundations that once supported workshops where medieval craftsmen created beautiful objects from recycled imperial stone. The city lives, breathes, continues its eternal dance between past and present. with the Colosseum serving as its spiritual anchor, a reminder that human achievement, when conceived with vision and executed with skill, can outlast empires, outlast religions, outlast political systems, outlast everything except the enduring human capacity for wonder. Tonight, in the gentle darkness settling over Rome, the Colosseum assumes its most perfect role. No longer arena, fortress, quarry, or tourist attraction, it becomes simply itself. A meditation on permanence and change, on ambition and humility, on the remarkable journey of stones shaped by human hands into something approaching the eternal. The underground chambers, where so much drama once unfolded, now rest in peaceful darkness. The lift shafts that once raised gladiators toward uncertain fate now serve as homes for small creatures who nest in the ancient mechanisms. The drainage channels that once emptied water after naval battles now carry only rainwater on its journey back to the earth. Even the arena floor, that stage where life and death decisions played out before thundering crowds, lies quiet beneath protective grading that shields the archaeological treasures still waiting for future discovery. The sand that once absorbed the blood of combat now exists only in historical imagination, replaced by pathways that guide modern pilgrims on journeys of understanding rather than entertainment. The acoustic perfection that once amplified crowd cheers now serves a gentler purpose, carrying the soft conversations of visitors who speak in hushed tones, instinctively recognizing that they stand in a space deserving reverence. The mathematical precision that created perfect sight lines for ancient spectators now frames views of Roman sunsets that paint the ancient stones in colours that change moment by moment. As true darkness approaches, the Colosseum reveals its most beautiful aspect. Modern lighting, carefully designed to respect rather than overwhelm the ancient architecture, brings gentle illumination to the arches that have stood sentinel over Rome since the reign of Titus. The building glows softly against the night sky, neither demanding attention nor hiding from view, but simply existing with the quiet confidence of something that has earned its place in human memory. This is the Colosseum's final lesson, perhaps its most important, teaching that true greatness lies not in the noise we make during our brief time on Earth, but in the quiet legacy we leave for those who will follow our footsteps through the corridors of time. The gladiators who fought here are remembered not for their individual victories or defeats, but for their courage in facing the unknown. The emperors who sponsored games are honoured not for their political calculations, but for their vision in creating something larger than themselves. The medieval families who made homes here are celebrated not for their specific daily activities, but for their wisdom in recognising beauty and claiming it as their own. The Renaissance scholars who measured these walls are appreciated not for their exact calculations, but for their passion in seeking understanding. The Romantic poets who found inspiration here are valued not for their particular verses, but for their ability to see metaphor and meaning in weathered stone. The modern archaeologists who reveal hidden secrets are respected not for their technical skills alone, but for their dedication to sharing knowledge with future generations. Each generation has approached the Colosseum seeking something different, yet each has found the same essential truth, that human beings, working together with shared purpose, can create achievements that transcend the limitations of any individual life. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, carry with you this gentle reminder of human potential. The Colosseum stands not as monument to violence or imperial excess, but as testament to our species' remarkable capacity for vision, adaptation, creativity, and endurance. In your dreams tonight, may you find the same peace that now settles over these ancient stones. May you rest with the confidence that comes from knowing that others before you have faced uncertainty with courage, have adapted to change with wisdom, have built their lives upon foundations that prove capable of supporting unimaginable transformation. The Colosseum story continues, but its greatest chapters may yet be unwritten. Future generations will discover new meanings in these stones, will find new purposes for these spaces, will continue the eternal human dialogue between past and future that has made this building not just a monument to ancient Rome, but a living symbol of humanity's endless capacity for renewal. Rest now as the Colosseum rests, in the gentle confidence that some things endure not because they resist change, but because they embrace it with grace, dignity, and unshakable faith in the continuing human story. The eternal city sleeps, the ancient stones dream, and somewhere in the peaceful darkness, the echo of 2,000 years of human experience whispers its timeless message, that we are all part of something magnificent, something lasting, something worthy of the effort required to build it well. Sleep peacefully, knowing that you too are part of this eternal story.